Right, UK boxing blogger coming right back at ya. Today, joining me on the phone with an exclusive interview is Gary Shogun Logan. How are we today, Gary?
Really good, thanks. Really good. Really good. Been a long day, but I'm good to go.
No problem. Right, basically, Gary, what I want to do is start off a little bit about yourself and your career in the early days. How did you get into boxing?
God, June 12th, 1980, June 26th, 1980, watched Ray Leonard versus Roberta Duran at home. Went downstairs, told Mum and Dad I wanted to fight, and then Mum didn't let me fight for about 3 years. So that was about it, really. I started the amateur career around about early 84. I didn't have that long an amateur career, but I sort of crammed in around about 90 bouts in.
Wow.
Got to a few national finals, won the London senior welterweight title, 1988. I knocked out Kevin Lucin in the final, actually.
Wow.
And then I turned pro with Mickey Duff. Was pro from about 88 to 96. And then obviously I fought for British welterweight title and the light middleweight title, once against Del Bryan and once against Ensley Bingham. They were good fights. Unfortunately, I come out the wrong end of it. And then I had a 5-year rest, 5-year sort of hiatus, as they call it. And then I came back 2001 to 2003. And
See, one of your second fight back, Gary, was Spencer Fearon. What was he like as a fighter?
Spencer's very good. Problem was Spencer didn't live the life.
Yeah.
Spencer's too talented for his own good. He's very talented, but I knew he wasn't the best liver at the time, but I knew he was very talented because I'd known that because we'd had really good sparring sessions up until when we'd fought. And then he'd lost a fight prior to that he should never have lost. Can't remember who he lost to, but it was a bit of a shock. And then Frank Warren said to me, it's spit or get off the top pot time, so let's see if you can beat an old stager like Gary Logan. So they made the fight, and I came out with a second round victory. It was a good fight whilst it lasted. It was quite exciting whilst it lasted.
Yeah. See, I remember one of the first fights that I see of yours back in 2002 was a Takaloo fight.
Takaloo, yeah, for the world title, for the WVU title, yeah. It's funny. Boxing's a crazy game. I'd just lost prior to that, a few months prior to that, against Hussein Osman for the Southern Area title, and it'd been voted Boxing News Fight of the Year, which was, when you think I was around about the period of Ricky Hatton and such, and that was quite an accolade to have. Mm-hmm. So, and I never dreamed I would get that title fight, but obviously they put him in there, young Takaloo in there with an old stager again, like Gary Logan. It was very close right up to the end. He sort of needed the stoppage because he got a bad cut, and it was quite close on points as well. So, it's just one of those things. He was a stronger, younger man, and sort of outlasted me, sort of thing. But it was, I have no regrets about my career. I think anyone that knows me or knew of me then as a fighter knew that. Any kid that was getting ready to fight me knew they had to be in the shape of their lives to beat me. And
because you had a long career, actually, 42 fights in total.
Sorry?
You had quite a long career, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a long career over sort of like two sort of periods, really. And what can I say? I feel somewhat unfulfilled because I didn't win any major titles. I'd probably say I was known at the time as one of the better fighters not to win a title. But it was a really tough era. I'm not saying that today's any less tough, but it was a really, really tough era full of really, really good, tough, hard men that would go on to fight for world titles. Ensley Bingham went on to fight for a world title against Ronald Winky Wright. Kevin Lucin went on to fight Felix Trinidad and dropped him. Before he got beat. So it was a really, really tough period. There was times when I came close to fighting Gary Jacobs, who had been himself knocked out by Mickey Hughes, who was a very, very tough man. It was just all round. Everywhere you look, there were no easy fights. So
even the light middleweight division, when you come back in 2001 to about 2002, 2003, that was a brutal division. You had Wayne Alexander, you had everybody.
There was talk of me fighting my good friend Wayne Alexander at the time, and we'd sparred prior to that, and I'd hurt Wayne, Wayne had hurt me, and they were sparring sessions that you'd have paid money to watch. You know,
well, you had
it was that tough. It really was.
You had Paul Samuels. You had loads of guys about them, man.
Yeah, Paul Samuels was really on the up, tough man from Wales. You know, so it was a really, really good period. Anthony Farnell. I thought there was a time then when he became WBO champion. There was an opportunity to. I thought that we'd be able to get the fight with him. I won an eliminator, which was said to be an eliminator against Matthew Tate, which is a really good fight. That was my second to last fight.
Yeah.
When the fight with Farnell didn't happen, then I was sort of like, I sort of became that sort of dangerous older sort of veteran that not the younger kids wouldn't take a chance on fighting me, you know. So, but then Jamie Moore stepped up. He accepted the challenge, and that was my last fight, you know, and it was a tough fight, and you know, it was, Jamie said it was, I was a tricky opponent, but it all ended, I think, in the 5th round. I think it was. He done me with a good body shot.
Yeah, he was very strong, young.
Like he was on the up and up, you know.
Yeah.
So, it was a good career. And then after that, I sort of flitted about doing personal training, but I always wanted to be a coach. I always knew that. Once I got the fighting out of my system totally, I would be able to be a coach.
See, that's what my next question. You're now at Urban King's gym. It's like a mixed martial arts gym, yeah?
Yeah, it's a mixed martial arts gym, yeah.
So, well, I'm a bit of a crossover fan. Obviously, I'm a boxing purist, really.
Yeah.
But, I've learned to respect MMA over the last few years.
Same here.
Yeah, like people who understand the grappling and all, and the striking now is just on a really good level. Especially when you see guys like John Jones and T.J. Dillashaw and all
them guys. To another level.
Yeah. Basically, though, obviously you're training Keane now, aren't you, Georgie Keane?
Yeah, training Georgie Keane. Yeah.
What other boxers are down at that gym?
Only Georgie at the moment. He's my one banner fighter. I did have Joe Boy Taylor training down there.
Yeah.
But he's had a lot of injuries, and I don't think Georgie will fight again. To be honest with you, Joey will fight again.
Yeah.
So it's just been me and Georgie at the moment, but I've started up Team Shogun, which is something I'm doing on my own now. I'm no longer with Adam Booth, so it's something I'm doing on my own, and I'm hoping in the future. There's a couple of fighters on the comeback that their names have been mentioned that they may well end up training with me, and but they're just waiting to sort things out with their managers, and then I'll be taking them on as coach. So it's looking pretty good to I'd like to build up a stable, say 2 or 3 fighters, but Georgie is my first, and at the moment, obviously
that's a good talent. He had a bit of a setback the other month. Well,
yeah, he did. He was a transition. He was William Warburton. It's not somebody to be taken easily. In hindsight, it wasn't a great matchup considering Georgie had only been coming to Causden for the better part of 5 weeks. So it was a transition. He was travelling a long way to come and train, sometimes up to twice a day, and not getting the relaxation that he needed in between. And then so it worked out conveniently that when I split from Adam, that he came with me. He only lives in Highbury in Islington. He travels to King's Cross every day. He's fresh, and that was exemplified in his last fight. It was many people said that was his best performance as a professional so far. And so I think a loss early in your career is not a problem. It's how you react from it. It's how you learn from it. And I must say, the kid, he really worked hard. He really worked hard diligently at making himself a better looking fighter for when he came out again. So I'm really happy with it. I'm not too. At least I know now that we don't want too many disappointments in his career, but we want to know that he can suffer setbacks and still get his head down and work at becoming a better fighter, and that's what we do all the time.
Yeah. So basically, one big question I had for you, Gary, like being in an MMA gym, do you take, like from what I've realised, way before some of the boxing purists did, the training that goes in with an MMA fighter, the strength and conditioning. I know a lot of them are starting to get it with the Pacquiao, working with Arezia and all that. Yeah. But I still don't think they got it 100% yet.
The fighters, professional boxers?
Yeah.
No, it's never going to be 100% across the board, because there's still, still some trainers still stuck in the 19th century and in the early 20th century, where they think that fighters should just do long runs and wear jack-nail boots, sort of like, sort of thing, that sort of attitude,
Well, football's evolved
and it's
from
hard,
that as
it's
well.
hard to get the fighters out of that sort of mode of thinking, I mean, I was the same, when I turned pro, I was with Colin Smith, Duke Mackenzie training from about 88 till, say, about 91. And then I went with not Dean Powell, I went with Carly Cruz, Adrian Dodson's foster father, and he was trying to get me into resistance work then. And I sort of poo-pooed it because I thought, I'm Gary Logan, I'm naturally talented, I don't need to be any stronger. And if I could have my career all over again, I would have concentrated on being strong and fighting at whatever weight I'd fight at, rather than doing it the other way around, just enduring my body in actual fact, actually making myself weak rather than becoming strong. So you're getting fighters, David Hayes sort of taking boxing, kicking and screaming into the 21st century with his sort of attitude to training. Carl Froch's the same. Georgie Groves to a certain extent. So there's a few that are bucking the trend. I know Carl's a big MMA fan.
See, like here's the thing: is weight cutting as well. MMA guys have got weight cutting down to a science. Much. So they know how to strengthen all their muscles, their power and all that as well. And then they can work on speed, power, upper body strength, lower body strength, core strength, all of that. And they can come in prime and ready, and not depleting themselves. When you see like hardcore boxing purist fans and the media talking about like weight cutting of a couple of pounds, like it's a big difference. Like when it's not, like you've got MMA guys doing 10 to 15 pounds a night.
There's a few trainers, that I do know that they do know what they're doing in the pro game. There's a few, but they are less than a handful. But those are the guys that I know of. I don't profess to know what goes on in everybody's camp and saying that I'm the only one with knowledge on it. But what I do, with Georgie Keane especially, I consult very closely with his strength and conditioner, and I like the way his strength and conditioner works. I like his ideals. I like the sort of nuances behind and the principles behind what he's trying to achieve with Georgie, because that's what I've said to him. I went to the trainer and I said, I need Georgie stronger here. There's this part of his body that's not developed. If Georgie wants to be the sort of fighter he wants to be, this has got to be developed. And we're singing off the same sort of hymn sheet, because I have a anatomy and physiology background as well to a certain extent. So I know what it takes that a fighter needs. I know where a fighter needs to be stronger. So we're trying to do our best, but I've got nothing but admiration for how the MMA boys do it as well. I mean, it's great to be around them, seeing them doing their jiu-jitsu, to doing their stand-up, to doing their wrestling. It's amazing, really is.
Have you had a roll yet, Gary?
No, I won't say. I know I'll probably get an injury knowing me.
It's hard work.
It's really hard work. I've been sparring lately. I've been stand-up sparring with. I've got a sparring class down at Urban Kings, which is on a Wednesday, and obviously everybody's trying to take the old stager out, so it's really good to hit my old skills. I've sort of like modelled myself on Hopkins now. I'm learning that once again how much of an art this game is just by watching him. He's my inspiration, and I take that into my sparring with the kids,
Of course, that's brilliant. Yeah. I think you should get a lot more fighters coming your way, Gary, because I actually believe that is the way forward, mate. 100%. And I think as soon as boxing gets to that level where they all do it, I think across the board you can just get better performances.
Definitely.
Right, so also what I want to do, Gary, to talk about a couple of things with your experience. How'd you get you've obviously got the same nickname as Shogun Hua. How did you come about to get Shogun?
I got that from Carly Carew, actually. Adrian Dodson's dad. When I started training with him, he said, you need a catchy nickname. He goes, I've always seen you as a warrior. You're very independent minded, and he was big up on Japanese and Chinese and black history and everything, and he said, shoguns were very, very honourable men, and I think you should be called Shogun. So
proper samurai warrior.
As such. And it just, when I told my sister, who was a big fan, she used to sell so many tickets for me back in the day. She loved it. She went running her guns up to all her mates, and that was it. I was Gary Shogun Logan. So.
Well, to be fair, I like Shogun Hua's nickname, but yours actually rhymes.
Yeah.
And it was before him, you know what I mean? So
I think that's the great thing about it as well. Yeah. I sort of know, And it's funny.
And your fighting style, Gary.
He's a really good friend of mine. I used to help train Dion when we were in tandem with Adam Booth when I was there. And he actually sent me the Wikipedia definition of a shogun. And then he put underneath it in brackets, "This is deep shit, Gary." And I laugh because that is so typically Dion. He's very, very deep, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's quality, man.
He does appreciate it.
I've always wondered that. Right, Gary, before we end this interview on your career and what's going on now, can we talk a little bit about the Adam Booth gym and your time there?
Yeah, we can do that, yeah.
Yeah, what one of the fans' questions is, quite a few fans know that I'm interviewing today, basically they wanted to know, when George Groves split with Adam Booth, did you have enough of a relationship with George Groves for him to maybe come and train with you and not Paddy?
No, I didn't. I've always liked George. I think Georgie respected me to a certain degree, but, you know, at that time, you know, I think Georgie knew that me and Adam came as a team, so that was never going to be a consideration, you know. You never know what happened in the future. You never know, maybe them two might end up getting back together. I don't think so. I'd like to think so, you know, but, sometimes it just doesn't happen that way, you know, but thing with, yeah, a lot of people did mention that. They said, "Oh, he's surely got to go with someone that's sort of like similar to Adam Booth and everything," but it just didn't happen, you know. And at that time, it just wouldn't have been appropriate at the time. No, it wouldn't have been appropriate.
Cool. So obviously, you know, for the kind of things that have been going on in that gym at the moment, you know, obviously, I know the kind of person you are, so I know you're not going to go into it too much before even asking the question. But you know, like, it's quite sad that you see George Groves and David Haye, you know, leaving Adam Booth in that way. You know, a lot of fans, you know, for me, Adam Booth's a great trainer. You know, he's a technician. He's always has a fight plan. He works on defense, offense. So there's nothing you really need to sort of, you know, with some trainers you think, or some fighters you seem to, or even just looking at the fighters, you think they might need to go and find like a defensive-minded coach, you know, like a Floyd Mayweather Senior or a Tim Witherspoon or something like that, someone who can teach them something that they're missing, that they obviously ain't learning from their trainer. Then there seems to be nothing there, you know.
How do you mean there's nothing there? What do you mean by that?
What I mean is there seems to be no reason for why they should want to leave Adam Booth.
Listen, you know, let's keep it real. And I've said this time and time before. Boxing, the relationship between a fighter and his trainer, more so than his manager, is like a marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be like a marriage. You have to be that close, because at any time, come fight time in a fight, when you're in dire need of technical advice to change the fight to your advantage, should you be in trouble, you have to trust wholeheartedly in your trainer.
Right,
yeah? Now, if you're not spending enough time, now, relationships break up because of one or two things, don't they? They break up because you're either spending too much time together and you just don't get on, or you don't spend enough time together and you drift apart.
Yeah.
That's the only two reasons why fighters and trainers split up. It's either they're around each other too much, but the personalities aren't meshing anymore, just like a marriage, or it's like a marriage where one man's working away from his wife for so long that they're not spending time together, and then before you know, you drift apart.
Of course, yeah.
So you know, I don't know, you know, people need to really get real. I always say to my fighters, boxing is life and life is boxing. It correlates life.
Course,
boxing correlates life, and there are times when you are just not familiar. The great saying is familiarity breeds contempt.
Cool, yeah,
you know, and it does. You know, they just drifted apart. They may have grown apart as people, grown apart as men. They've got different ideals, you know, and that's just what happens, you know.
Cool, yeah.
You know, David didn't write the book on boxing, and Adam Booth didn't write the book on boxing. David thinks he'll find knowledge from somewhere else, and David's a very well-educated man. I mean, David, you know, to be honest, there's times when I've looked at David's training, you know, I've watched him in time to time when Adam hasn't been around, the geezer could train himself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's got that much knowledge about how the game is, about the game in general. Same with George. George is a very, very bright boy, and I'd say that when you've got guys of such high intellect, Harry, David, Georgie, Adam, there's always going to be clashes. It just can't help but be, because you're talking about three pack leaders. You talk about pack leaders there. Their personalities are those of, if there was a pack of wolves or a pack of pride of lions, these boys will be at the head of those prides.
See, you've just answered the question there. You give me a deeper understanding of it, really, to be fair. It sounds to me, the way you've explained that also, just like some MMA fighters, like we'll just say George St. Pierre, they'll go from gym to gym to take each bit. They've obviously been working with Adam for that long now.
Yeah.
They need to go and spread their wings and fly.
Yeah, sometimes,
little bits.
I was the same with Adam as well, me and Adam worked well together, but it just hit me that, I needed to be my own man, because I didn't ever want to be just known in boxing as Adam Booth's assistant, I wanted to be my own man, develop my own fighters, have my concepts that I wanted to put into play with fighters, I don't believe there's any one way to train one fighter. I believe in the Ray Arcel sort of theory that you mould your style of training around your fighter's style. Yeah. Rather than trying to make every fighter look the same.
It's that same as you.
I'm a great believer in that,
I totally agree. Well, thanks for that insight. That's probably going to answer, help people understand.
Yeah, a lot of people were shocked and they were disappointed, but I'm a realist, and I've been through breakups with trainers, and I've been through breakups with managers, and it's never because you can't stand that person. It's just that, it's just time. It is. Yeah. Time to split, time to do your own thing. Time to grow on your own to a certain extent.
Can I ask you something, Gary? Right, David Haye versus Vladimir Klitschko. Why do you think the game plan didn't come off, or David Haye wasn't so willing to engage that night? Do you think he was too engaged in defence? Was it the trainers in the ring?
I think.
What was the game plan?
It's a tough one. I would like to think that we didn't give Vladimir credit for just how good and how effective he is. I'm not using excuses, but I definitely think that David's injury David's an explosive fighter, and he needed to be able to explode in and out. And obviously the toe would have played a part in that. But also, Vladimir is not just a good big man; he's a brilliant big man. And sometimes you have a theory about every fighter goes in with a theory and with a theoretical ideal of beating an opponent, and sometimes it just not your night. It just does not come off. And David's movement from side to side was brilliant, but the actual most important movement, closing that range to get hold of Vladimir, wasn't. But there were times, I think it was around about the 6th round, when he started catching Vladimir, and he just couldn't sustain it. I think he had one really good round where I thought, I
remember that.
Clop him. And, I think that might have been the shots that sort of cut Vladimir. You got the cut afterwards and everything.
Do you know my opinion on that, Gary? Right? Is from everything I know about, I watched David Haye's career from when he was a Commonwealth amateur boxer to coming up on the BBC, all the way through, and I've followed it to the point where I've heard about his sparring over Miami and all of that. He's the kind of guy that goes full pelt. Like, from what I hear, maybe in a gym, he spars like a beast. He's that type of guy who will want. He's a pride fighter in that sense.
Yeah,
he's a pride fighter. Yeah, he's got pride. He will want to win everything.
He's a pride fighter. I mean, you know what? When it was David, the best description I can give David is that he is one of the best big boxing sociopaths I've ever seen. When I say that, it's just that you get your sparring partner, they come in the gym, David will shake their hand, he'll be happy with him, he'll smile and joke with him, but once the sparring gloves go on, he's all business.
But see, that's the thing.
But it's not like he's really aggressive and he means to knock you out. It's just that if he hits anyone on the chin clean, they're going over, or at least they're going to get stunned. It's just the way it is. He is one of the most incredible punches I've ever had to witness in person.
Of course, Gary. That's what really surprised me that night.
Yeah,
it's like he didn't fight like that.
Vladimir's a very good heavyweight. He's a very good big heavyweight. The job Emmanuel Stewart did with him, as a result of him getting beaten by, who was it that stopped him?
But it's like, it was the American
Lamont
guy.
Brewster?
Lamont Brewster,
Yeah, Lamont Brewster. Then he had the difficulty with
Corey
Samuel
Sanders
Joseph,
knocked him out as well. Corey Sanders knocked him out, yeah.
So then he got with Emmanuel, and the thing that Emmanuel made him brilliant at, if you watch him, his footwork is so good. We're not talking Muhammad Ali footwork. We're talking effective footwork that just gets you out of range. His judgment of distance that night was absolutely superb.
Cool, Gary.
Such a good game plan.
But I thought
what he would have... Their game plan was better than David's that night, and also David had a bad night at the office, and who the bloody hell hasn't had in their lifetime a bad night at the office?
Cool.
He's had 2 bad nights his whole career. One of them he came close to. His other bad night before that was when he nearly stopped Carl Thompson.
Yeah.
Before succumbing, and the other one was Vladimir Klitschko. Over a career, I'll take that. Yeah,
of course. But even in that Carl Thompson fight, David Haye fought like David Haye. I'm not trying to. I understand the things with what despite. I thought David would have gone out on his shield a little bit. It's like I think that his everything that I know, I think I know about David Haye would have suggested he would have gone out of his shield on his shield. You know, he wouldn't have but it's like he accepted to sort of just make sure he didn't get knocked out and it just seemed like that on the day. I know, like maybe what the stuff you worked on didn't work.
Yeah.
It wasn't working. You underestimated him, and he just didn't. He didn't go out on his shield the way that I thought he would have. You know, so he could have knocked Vlad out because. You know, that's another thing. We all thought he only had to touch Vladimir.
Yeah, that's right. I think people were just so
shocked.
I think, and also, you know, American TV was saying the game was crying. I mean, Vladimir's really good, but he's boringly effective. There's nothing. He's just not. There's no show reel on Vladimir that you'd like to watch and say, "Oh my God, that's one of history's best, most exciting heavyweights." It's just not that, but he's got a way of winning. Whereas David's highlight reel is something special as well. But you know, he just faced a good big man all night, and he just had a bad night at the office. That's all I put it down to.
Cool.
He had a bad night at the office, and you know, over a career, you're entitled to do so. You know, unfortunately, we live in a modern era where it's nearly unforgivable by the media and fans alike for somebody to not fulfill what they promised to fulfill. You know, and leading up to the fight, David had sold that fight as, you know, David and the Giant, David and Goliath, he's going to go in there and destroy this good big man, and he just didn't live up to expectations. But you know what? I'll always be a David A man because
I think he
he's
can
one of the most exciting fighters, period, that we've had in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I think the Derek Chisora fight more than made up for it. That was one of the best heavyweight fights of the last 10 years.
Yeah, agreed.
So, you know, he just had a bad day in the office in his biggest night, and that's why people are not willing to let him forget it.
Gary, were you around during the sparring, like for the Fury fight?
Yeah, I was around for that.
You know what Wilder was about, wasn't he?
Yeah, Deontay was around. Yeah.
Can you answer a couple of questions?
Pay money to watch that.
Would you? Right. So, how did that sparring go down? You're going to have a lot of US fans here. This is a big debate.
Yeah.
Did Wilder not?
All I will say is that you pay big money to watch it, and they both touch one another in the most violent way.
Wow.
And I'd love to see a return of that somewhere down the line.
Wow. Who would your money be on to win that fight?
David A every day of the week.
Right, okay.
David A every day of the week. I'm a David A man till I die.
Right,
you know,
okay.
I just think that what he's doing is, what he's attempting to do is quite incredible. He is a very big cruiserweight fighting these absolute giants. When he hits any one of them, they all have the same look.
Well, this is the thing.
Derek's had it, Vladimir had it, Deontay had it in sparring. When they get hit, they cannot believe that this smaller man is hurting them the way he can.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. People underestimate his record anyway.
Yeah.
Undisputed cruiserweight champion, heavyweight champion. you know, is what it is. He's lost one fight, really. Because to me, I don't class Cole Thompson fight as a significant loss.
No, it was a career building. You know what?
Yeah.
For me, knowing David as I know him, it was the fight that literally made him a better fighter.
Put it this
The
way.
attitude after that fight was that of what a professional should be.
Put it this way. The
leading up to the fight, I think he underestimated Cole. And when David underestimates people, he tends not to maybe work as hard as he should do. But
well, the thing is, Gary,
mate, he was just on it.
I don't see many fighters what would take a fight like that in a way at that stage of their career. Not this day and age. Not this day and age. Not someone like Cole Thompson, tough as nails, throws bombs. People wouldn't go near them fighters.
No, exactly.
No, not this day and age.
And this kid did, you know, at quite a relatively young age, you know. So,
cool.
Yeah, got nothing but admiration for him for that.
Right, well, thank you very much, Gary. That's been an absolute pleasure today, joining me on the phone, talking about your experience as a trainer and a little bit of insight into your career. Mm-hmm. So that's UK boxing blogger out.